I want to delve into the complex and often misunderstood topic of narcissism. As a resilience practitioner and post-traumatic growth specialist, I've seen the impact narcissistic behavior can have on individuals and families. So my goal today is to shed light on what narcissism truly is, how to identify it, and to provide you with practical advice on handling narcissistic behavior. Before I jump in, let me remind you to join my Get Up and Grow online community for more open and honest conversations like this one. We get real and raw about the things that really matter. So let's get started. Narcissism is a term that's often thrown around casually, but it's important to understand its clinical meaning. Narcissism in psychological terms refers to narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. It's a condition that's characterized by a long-term pattern of exaggerated self-importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. It's crucial to note that narcissism exists on a spectrum. So while we might all exhibit some narcissistic traits from time to time, NPD is a diagnosable condition that can severely impact one's life and relationships. Proper diagnosis by a qualified mental health professional is essential to avoid mislabeling someone based on limited observations. So how can you recognize narcissistic behavior? Here are some common signs. Grandiosity, exaggerated sense of self-importance and entitlement is a sign of narcissism. A need for admiration, someone who's constantly seeking praise and validation. Lack of empathy, as I mentioned before, the inability or the unwillingness to recognize or care about the feelings of others. Manipulative behaviors, using others to achieve personal goals. And arrogance, displaying haughty behaviors or attitudes. Also attention-seeking, being overly concerned with appearance and needing to be the center of attention. Jealousy and envy, often envious of others or believing others are envious of them. And exploitative relationships means taking advantage of others to get what they want. And boundary issues, ignoring personal boundaries and violating other people's space and privacy. And then there's also the superiority complex, believing they are unique and can only be understood by other high status people like themselves. So these behaviors can manifest in various ways, both subtle and overt. For instance, a narcissist can or might monopolize conversations, belittle others to elevate themselves, or react with rage when they feel criticized or challenged. But before we dive deeper, it's vital to address the dangers of mislabeling someone as a narcissist. Incorrectly labeling someone without a proper diagnosis can damage relationships, and it can stigmatize individuals unfairly. Narcissistic traits alone do not constitute NPD. Only a trained mental health professional can make an accurate diagnosis after a thorough assessment. So narcissism as a concept is perceived differently across cultures due to varying social norms, values, and psychological frameworks. Understanding these cultural perspectives provides a broader context for how narcissistic traits are viewed and managed worldwide. Let's look at Western cultures, and this includes the United States and Western Europe. In these cultures, particularly in the United States, narcissism is often associated with individualism and self-promotion. Now, these cultures value personal achievement, confidence, and assertiveness, which can sometimes blur the lines between healthy self-esteem and narcissistic behavior. But narcissism is generally viewed negatively when it crosses into exploitative or abusive behavior. So the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder are well recognized And there's a strong emphasis on psychological evaluation and treatment. If we look at East Asian cultures, for example, China, Japan, South Korea, and those places, which are more collectivist, they prioritize harmony, modesty, and group cohesion over individualism. Narcissistic behavior, characterized by self-centeredness and a lack of empathy, is often viewed as disruptive and socially inappropriate. And in these cultures, there's a strong emphasis on humility and respect for others, making overt narcissistic traits less acceptable. However, subtle forms of narcissism can exist, but they are often masked by socially acceptable behaviors. If we look at Middle Eastern cultures in countries like Turkey and other Arab countries, they honor, for them, honor and social reputation are of paramount importance. Narcissistic behavior might manifest differently, often aligning with cultural expectations of masculinity and leadership. While self-promotion and confidence might be accepted in men, particularly in positions of power, they are expected to balance these traits with generosity and social responsibility. So excessive narcissism, especially if it leads to dishonor or social discord, is generally frowned upon. Looking at African cultures, specifically sub-Saharan Africa, they are diverse, but many share collectivist values that emphasize community, family, and social interconnectedness. So narcissistic traits that prioritize individual gain over communal well-being are typically viewed negatively. Respect for elders, communal decision-making, and social harmony are highly valued, making overt narcissistic behavior much less acceptable. And let's look at South Asian cultures, countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And remember, I'm generalizing, but it gives us a cultural overview here. In these South Asian cultures, family and social hierarchy play significant roles. Narcissistic behavior, particularly in younger individuals, can be seen as disrespectful and contrary to the cultural norms of humility and respect for authority. However, in certain contexts, such as in business or politics, self-promotion and assertiveness may be tolerated or even encouraged. So the balance between personal ambition and social expectations is delicate. When we look at Latin American cultures, countries like Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, they often value charismatic and assertive personalities, especially in leadership roles. But these traits must be balanced with warm generosity and social engagement. Narcissistic behavior that undermines group cohesion or is perceived as arrogance is generally frowned upon. So family and social networks are crucial to these cultures, and behaviors that threaten these bonds are discouraged. And finally, looking at indigenous cultures, various indigenous communities all over the world often emphasize community, tradition, and connection to nature. Narcissistic behavior, which prioritizes individual desires or over communal well-being, is typically at odds with these values. Respect for elders, collective decision-making, and communal living are common themes, making narcissism generally unacceptable. So you can see how cultural perceptions of narcissism vary widely across the globe. And it's influenced by values such as individualism versus collectivism, social harmony, family dynamics, and leadership expectations. While overt narcissistic traits may be more tolerated in some Western contexts, they are generally viewed negatively in cultures that prioritize community and social harmony. And understanding these cultural differences is crucial for navigating social interactions and for providing culturally sensitive psychological care. If you like where I'm going with this, please like, share, and subscribe to help me reach more people. I want to offer you some practical tips for dealing with diagnosed narcissists. Okay. So if you are dealing with or living with someone who has been diagnosed with NPD, here are 12 practical tips to help you manage that relationship. Firstly, set boundaries. Clearly define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. Then stay calm. Avoid getting emotionally reactive to their provocations. And don't engage in arguments. Narcissists often seek to win rather than to resolve. And seek support. Join support groups or seek therapy for yourself. Please don't take it personally. Their behavior is about their issues, not about your worth. And limit your expectations. You need to accept that they may never change. Practice self-care. Prioritize your own well-being and your own mental health. But be assertive. Stand up for yourself, but do it without aggression. Use I statements. Focus on your feelings and your needs when you communicate with them, without accusing them. And very importantly, document interactions. Keep records of abusive behaviors if it's necessary. Avoid giving in. Don't reinforce their manipulative tactics by giving in to them. And have an exit strategy. You need to know when and how to leave if the relationship becomes too toxic. But if you suspect someone in your life exhibits some narcissistic traits but isn't diagnosed, here are 12 tips for managing those interactions. Recognize the signs. Understand the behavior to avoid being manipulated. And limit exposure. Spend less time with them if it's possible. Communicate clearly, so be concise and direct in your communication. Don't feed the ego. Avoid assertive or excessive flattery or attention. Stay grounded. Keep a firm grip on your own reality and your own self-worth. Manage your expectations. Don't expect empathy or deep emotional connections from those people. Focus on solutions. So redirect conversations towards constructive outcomes instead of getting stuck in arguments. Encourage professional help. Suggest they seek therapy for their issues and get professional help for yourself too. But also know your boundaries. Clearly define and stick to your personal boundaries. Avoid power struggles, and that means don't engage in battles of control. Narcissists thrive on that. Seek outside perspective. Talk to a trusted friend or a therapist about the situation. And very importantly, protect your energy. Prioritize your interactions so that you stick to positive and uplifting connection. Understanding narcissism is the first step towards effectively managing your interactions and protecting your own well-being. Remember, while dealing with narcissistic behavior can be challenging, it's crucial to focus on your own growth and cultivating your own resilience. So by setting boundaries, seeking support, and practicing self-care, you can navigate these difficult relationships more effectively. If you have any questions or need further support, feel free to reach out to me directly. Stay strong, stay positive, and remember, you have the power to grow and flourish.